Welcome to VoiceOver, Movies That Move Us. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about the movies that made a mark, that led to cinematic epiphanies, and it's not always the movie you'd expect. Today's movie is Lage Raho Munna Bai, a Mumbai film from 2006. The title means Carry On Munna Brother, and is about Munna, a gangster who falls in love with a radio DJ named Gandhi and becomes an expert on Gandhi to impress her. If you know anything about Mumbai cinema, more commonly known as Bollywood, you might know that Sanjay Dutt, the actor who plays Munna, is the son of Nargis, a popular actress from the 1950s whose most beloved film was Mother India. She married Sunil Dutt, who played her adult son in Mother India, and the two became a political power couple in the 1970s. It's our first Bollywood film on VoiceOver, so pardon me if I geek out a little bit with our guest, James Goldberg, a playwright, poet, and historian with family ties to Punjab. We'll cover most of the plot of the film, so be aware we'll be discussing spoilers throughout. Stick around after the convo for movie recommendations. So you studied with the screenwriter. Were you in India?
Abhijit Joshi wrote the screenplay for this and Three Idiots.
Okay.
And several other films, but those are kind of the two big. He got hired at Otterbein College in Ohio, now Otterbein University, where I went. And my chair, who was a friend of mine, was like, good news. We brought in an Indian for you. Here's this Bollywood screenwriter. I think you'll have a good time. And so actually, I just met with him and arranged to study one-on-one.
Wow.
And so my lunches through that whole next year were once a week I'd go and we were actually doing Indian drama. He'd give me usually a play script.
From which area?
All across.
Oh, that I think needs to be said. When we say Indian something.
There's a lot. Yeah. My family's Punjabi. Those are both North, but have very different. There's lots of actually jokes about like Gujarati makes $100 and takes 10 to maybe go get a dinner for himself, saves 90. A Punjabi makes $100, looks at how to throw a party, borrows 10 from the Gujarati, and then like spends it all, right? There's some differences between the states, but a lot of them have their own language.
Yeah. Like 7 cinemas in India based on languages.
Yeah.
Even though there are 22 languages.
Yeah, I think most people in India watch Hindi movies, at least some of the time, which are the Bollywood movies. But then the southern languages have big. So I've got an aunt from Hyderabad, and they're watching Telugu stuff all the time. Tamil cinema's gotten huge. Yeah. Punjabi movies are still kind of niche. But Diljit Dosanjh, who's a Punjabi cinema actor, was awesome at the Met Gala. He won. So if you want to check out 2025 Met Gala, Diljit Dosanjh.
So you met for lunches.
We met for lunches, and we'd look at plays, and sometimes he'd go, this is a great play, and sometimes he'd say, this is a really interesting play with, I think, one major structural flaw. Tell me next week what you think it is, right? Wow. And so we'd do those kind of exercises. And then he started giving me poetry, too. So actually, my introduction to Urdu poetry was from Abhijit. On vacation, visiting my grandpa, he saw this writing, which he learned Urdu as a kid alongside Punjabi, and just starts reading these poems out loud and very expressive. It was a side of him I'd never seen before.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That was wonderful. We ended up reading a little bit of stuff from East African writers who he felt like thematically spoke. It was just great. All during this time, he was working on scripts. So Rajkumar Hirani, the director, used to come out summers and they would hang out in Ohio together. And their rule was they would talk about scenes and they could not stop until they were both like they lost it laughing. And then you could start writing. Oh. Right? But like they were the first audience. If they didn't think it was funny, they were not going to trust it to paper. And so you had this very collaborative verbal process to get going. And Abhijit would kind of shape things together.
Yeah. So many things are coming to mind, which is here is someone who's very serious about craft, and he's going to tackle a comedy. And I think for a lot of people, they don't think that way. They think if you're writing a comedy, you're a jokester, you're like, but this guy knows his literature.
Kind of came to prominence with a play that won awards in Europe about the riots between religious groups, and somebody who thought deeply about serious issues, but humor is an important tool. And I think that's kind of a theme of the film. It's not just a comedy, it's about the modes in which we engage the world and how we connect. And I think for me, that's been a lot of the influence too. You feel strongly about something. How can you show that? What energy are you bringing into the world around you?
And this film that we're talking about, I'm going to say the title and you can correct me, Lage Raho Munna Bai.
Good.
Did I do okay?
Lage Raho Munna Bai. Very well.
This film is about a really serious topic, actually. And I think a lot of people would be familiar with the general outlines of this topic. We have moved away from the tenets and principles that make our country great.
As much as we've lost touch with something great, it's just that the idea that there is this power in Gandhi's teachings that people should play with, that maybe something we honor and it's built into the holiday schedule and on the money and that kind of thing. We've paid a lot of lip service, but it's not a living tradition. How do we return to that?
And this hope and this striving and enthusiasm. And so I felt like in some ways that's really present in the character of the girlfriend. So John V, who has this radio show, wants to encourage people to know about Gandhi. So she's going to have this contest. And it is a truly funny scene when our gangster Munna Bai gets all of these goons to kidnap professors so that he can be on the phone telling the right answer while the professors are talking to him and giving him.
And I love in that scene that one professor is just outraged by this and resisting.
आप लोग ये ठीक नहीं कर रहे. मुझे कॉलेज जाने के लिए देर हो रही है. ये प्रोफेसर, तू कॉलेज जाएगा ना तो ये तेरे घर पे जाएगा तेरी वाइफ को हेलो बोलने के लिए.
And you have another, because they've laid out some prizes, like you could get a rice cooker, and he's just like in it to win it.
हम जो चाहे ले सकते हैं.
बिंदास. जवाब दे दो अच्छे से, फिर जो चाहे वो ले ले. ये मिक्सर ले ले, तवा ले ले, गैस ले ले.
It's this interesting, right? Like in miniature, how do you respond to injustice, right?
Corruption.
And one is this mode of like overt protest, and another one is kind of playful interaction. Can you soften the world around you? But it is a great scene, and I'm glad the guy got his rice cooker.
Well, that's a right answer. Congratulations.
Munna Bai is in love with John V, essentially, and that's why he's
from
doing
her voice.
all this.
He just loves, after a rough day of shaking people down and managing operations, he really needs to hang out by the beach and listen to this beautiful voice.
Beautiful voice, encouraging, idealistic. She herself has all the friends of her father living with her so that she can take care of these older people. And again, a serious topic, but played with some humor and also recognizability, right? Like, oh, I know that guy.
I do love the house where John V's dad has set everybody up for their second innings. A lot of Indian films across are really interested in multi-generational experience and older people. Part of that is culturally, there's a lot of respect for elders in Indian culture. Part of it is also that until pretty recently, films weren't as segmented to a target demographic.
Right.
To make money in India, there had to be something for everybody. Yeah. And so you have a lot of rich plots of what's mom doing and what's grandma doing and what's grandpa doing. That's a nice element.
So you talked to the screenwriter, you worked with the screenwriter, he was helping train you, and then you saw this movie. What was your experience having known the screenwriter and known everything that he knows?
I think I was excited about seeing the film, right? Because I'd heard about it before and was interested. And on a craft level, it's just fun. Both Munna Bai movies were ones that like I showed my kids because he's a likable character. His like assistant, there's a good kind of comic duo energy with them. Thematically, it's rich. This was a film shown at the United Nations because people felt like this speaks to things. So I think it was nice to see at the time one of the reasons why I mentioned it to you as something that had an ongoing influence on me is I feel like, I don't know, my wife still teases me about how much of a chip I have on my shoulder to fight. And, you know, just by inclination, I want to stand up for things I feel strongly about. And I don't know, it's easy for some things to get under my skin and hurt my feelings. I feel like I grew up a lot more combative because of that. And I'm not going to say one movie made me repent and change, but a little bit. It was nice to see this model of somebody who is pushing for change in such a kind, loving way. So the central conflict of the film is Lucky Singh is doing corrupt things, and one of them, he needs this house that Janvi's dad and all the friends have, and he's trying to get that in various corrupt ways.
ये वर्सोवा पंप हाउस के पीछे जो प्रॉपर्टी है, पूरी प्रॉपर्टी उन्होंने खरीद दी है. सिर्फ ये पीला बंगला नहीं मिल रहा है. मैंने कहा मैं दिलवा दूंगा. वेडिंग गिफ्ट समझो.
Munna, partly out of his interest in Janvi, and partly because we missed another big part of the film, which is studying Gandhi's works. After he passes the radio quiz and gets to meet her, he realizes no one will be with him. He can't fake it.
She asks him to give a speech.
A speech, yes, about Gandhi and his teaching.
Actually, क्या आप उनके लिए गांधी जी पर लेक्चर दे सकते हैं?
गांधी जी पे लेक्चर.
Yes, they love it. How about Friday?
He does the most desperate thing he can think of, which is enter a library, and spends this time in the library until he starts hallucinating that he's seeing Gandhi.
कौन?
मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी.
देखो अंकल, 3 नाइट से अपन सोएला नहीं है. खाली पीली दिमाग खराब किया ना तो
खाली पीली क्या करोगे?
उम्र का लिहाज कर रहा हूँ अंकल. पढ़ाई करने दे, नहीं तो
क्या करोगे? मारोगे?
For him, it's like, oh, I can still cheat. Gandhi will just tell me. Most of it, like listening to a Gandhi that we're pretty sure he's hallucinating and figuring out how would Gandhi respond to different things. But then, like, his campaigns against Lucky Singh are like getting on the radio and telling everyone to send him flowers and get well cards.
मुंबई के वासियों, लकी सिंह तुमको जहां भी दिखे उसे फूल देने का और उसको बोलने का कि उल्टा कर, तेरा get well soon हो जाएगा मामो.
Because corruption is a disease and he needs to get well soon. Boman Irani, who plays Lucky Singh, in India cinema, they actually have an Academy Awards version award for Best Villain, which I love. And Boman Irani has won that, I think, multiple times. He brings this strong opposition, but also this human vulnerability and moments of sympathy. And so by the end of the film, not only is Munna encouraging people to treat Lucky Singh well, you start to want Lucky Singh to recover, to heal. And you see the things he's doing not just as this is a bad person following wrong ideas, but like, look, this is what he knows. Munna might not have been different that long ago. And so I think art like this has helped me develop a personal practice of charitable thinking. When I respond to something, I try to think, maybe they're just bad. Maybe they're after me, but maybe there's more going on with them. And then also, how do I bring a different energy? How do I create opportunities for people to learn and change instead of confronting them directly and shaming them about something I disagree with?
Right. Yeah. So this is interesting to me because when I'm watching the film, the very first time Gandhi's going to offer advice is go and apologize to Circuit. You've yelled at Circuit. You've humiliated him. The courageous thing to do in this moment is to apologize.
सॉरी बोला ना.
And that's when I said, oh, this isn't going to be like other movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
This is going to be about, I mean, for me, the things that came into my mind immediately were like, let's interrogate masculinity. Is masculinity yelling and screaming at people and making them feel bad about themselves so that you can look bigger and more powerful? Or is masculinity about apologizing, healing, reaching out, and saying our relationship is more important to me than my own ego, right?
Yep.
And I actually had this little moment where I thought, I don't think of myself in terms of masculinity, but I did think, when's the last time I've really apologized to someone?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, I'm right because.
Yep.
And I don't have to heal this because I have my reasons, which are really good reasons, right?
Yep.
And it's kind of been a long time. Sorry, everyone.
Well, you don't have to whisper it, right? I mean, that's the point of this movie.
Yeah.
You can say with some strength and pride, sorry, everyone.
Sorry,
right?
everyone, yeah.
And that's a good thing to bring forward. And I love that they've got a gangster
Right.
where it is like, this
Hierarchy.
is sort of, and in American cinema too, the epitome of masculinity through sort of gangster stories. And here's somebody who's very masculine and has gotten around kidnapping people and tell them what to do. And yeah, to learn this lesson and say, can you build influence in like an opposite way? One thing I heard about the film was we've had other films that honored Gandhi. There's this play on words where they use a word for bullying and then use the same suffix to say, now we're Gandhiing. Instead of pushing people around, we're going to go Gandhiing.
Yeah. Gandhigiri is
Yeah,
something.
Gandhigiri, yep.
Yeah.
गांधीगिरी
मतलब
दादागिरी का ऑपोजिट लकी सोचेगा कि अपन उसके साथ फाइट करेगा लेकिन अपन उल्टा करेगा अपन उसको फूल भेजेगा
And so, yeah, that's the theme of the film, but it's not about the historical Gandhi anymore, right? Where Munna gets the details totally wrong all the time in funny ways about him. It's about the spirit. And can you see strength in a different way? Which actually Gandhi in India kind of embodied, right? Like his physicality was slight and slow. He famously would engage in activism through things like fasting, which is a denial of physical strength, symbolic ways of asserting your own dignity while appealing to somebody else's conscience, even if that conscience seems to be real asleep. Right? Gandhi's coming in the wake of things like in Amritsar in Punjab. In 1919, people who had gone and fought in World War I for the British came home, were protesting something and got shot at. And a lot of them killed, right?
I only know this because I saw Rang de Basanti.
I think that was the same year. That's another
Yep.
film about a new generation thinking about the legacy of the independence movement and the different streams in the independence.
So you bring up Lucky Singh. Everybody knows that he's sick. Right.
Yep.
And, you know, from my experience with Bombay cinema, often the sick character is a strong, beefy guy. He's like going to be the enforcer, often silent, usually a good guy. Right.
Yep.
You don't know what he's going to do. Right. He comes on the screen and he's got all these muscles and then he turns out to be a good guy or a softie or something like that. Does that matter to you, this coding, this religious coding that the corrupt bad guy is a certain religion?
No, I think in this film, because there's enough depiction of turbans in Bollywood cinema, I don't think any given depiction has as much weight. That's the luxury. When something shows up a lot, then we can have different things. And I don't think his character is ever suggested in the film that this is from his ethnic or religious background. It just happens to be a thing.
And he's not truly malevolent. He's
No.
the kind of person who enjoys his status. He's going to do what he can to keep his status. He enjoys that the status makes possible this life that he has with his wife and his daughter. I mean, and the fact that we bring in the wife and the daughter is really important, I think, in humanizing him. And we get a wedding scene with the daughter, right?
Yeah.
Where she's being told she's not appropriate for the groom. And then we get the tears. And this is kind of a Bombay cinema moment where we have the crying bride wishing and hoping to be allowed to marry.
मैं झूठ बोलकर ये शादी नहीं कर सकती मैं मांगलिक हूँ ये उनके लिए जानना जरूरी है अगर शादी के बाद उससे कुछ हो गया तो I won't be able to forgive myself.
Yeah, and that kind of appeal against, we've got the hard rules of society with how do we kind of push each other? How do we enforce things? And then a lot of times in an Indian movie, there's the moment of, let's appeal to like, we could do this differently. We don't have to choose this confrontation we're building toward. So I think that's common to other films, but fun in this one in that that's not just a moment, that's the whole film building up to this thing and giving you a philosophy that you can act on about how do you make an appeal, a positive assertion of dignity.
Right. Yeah. We should talk about Janvi and Munna having a radio show together where people can call in and find out how Gandhi would advise them, right?
Yes.
And Munna's providing the advice, right?
Good morning, Mumbai. Welcome to our new show, Babu Ka Magic.
बोले तो 100 साल पहले अपन की कंट्री में एक मस्त आदमी आया था, मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी.
And a lot of it is tell the truth, be honest.
There's a courage and a power in honesty, right? And there's a vulnerability, and there's a power in that too.
Munna engages in something that I think of in my head as Bombay straight talk, which is when a masculine figure tells another man, you've got to do this thing, you need to do it right, and these are all the reasons why. And he's like yelling at him.
येड़ा हो गया साला, मिस्टेक खुद करेगा और सदा बाप को देगा. तेरी बॉडी देखकर बहुत खुश होगा ना तेरा बाप. अरे बचपन में जिस कंधे पर तेरे को बैठा कर घुमाया, आज उसी पर तेरे को शमशान लेके जाएगा. अरे 6 महीने तक उसको विश्वास भी नहीं होगा कि तू गया. जिस फोन पे तू बात कर रहा है ना, वही नंबर वो बार-बार घुमाता रहेगा, ये सोचते हुए कि तू फोन उठाएगा.
But you know that he's doing it out of love and concern, and he wants him to make the right choice. Munna is going to do that on the radio.
On the radio repeatedly,
Yes.
And here's what we've got to do. And one of my favorites of those little subplots is the guy whose neighbor spits chewing tobacco juice in the stairwell every day.
I think that's so relatable.
I use this term microtension. Right? Mm-hmm. For a while in the U.S., people were talking about microaggression a lot. I'm like, I don't know if I want to frame it that way. But in general, whether it's cultural difference or just human differences, there's all these little tiny tensions that make up life. And here's one where we're treating space in a different way. It's a shared space. In this case, though, it's like right outside the guy's door. It's really more his space, but on the public side. Right. And the neighbor is just so callous to it, right? And treating it like trash. And this other guy's so mad. And Munna says to him is, oh, what you got to do is you go clean it up every day, but you smile at him. Like you wait for him to come down the stairs. You go and you clean and you smile. And we get sort of a montage of the guy spitting and ignoring him.
Sorry.
बोले तो गांधीगिरी जिंदाबाद.
Finally, like, it occurs to him, instead of seeing this guy's challenged me, where I'd have to challenge back, or instead of me asserting dominance by spitting, this is someone who wants to relate to me in a human-to-human way. And it's that moment, right? Just by going out and smiling at him, but also showing when you do this, it has real consequences for me. He's inviting his antagonist to be human. And it's funny, film songs work differently. And this one, you have like the radio show triumph song. That's like, here's the song we're going to play as the spirit of Gandhiing is moving forward. And the music and the visual and Munna's sort of bigger than life, right? As he's continuing to advise this guy and get updates, along with this poor guy who's at first very forced in his smile, and then kind of it becomes organic, right? As he reaches out and tries, it gets less hard to approach conflict in this way.
The whole time I was watching this film, I thought, this is all so good. Can I do it? I mean, again, I kept coming back to me. Can I live my life that way? What are the small moments that really bother me and that I fail at all the time, but then I kind of justify to myself that it was okay that I failed, you know? I don't know, all wrapped up in, you know, a love story and like an action sequence and, you know, all of this stuff.
And, you know, 5 different subplots because that's how they go. And but I think it's good. And my wife likes to say in life, you get to choose between discomfort and resentment. So you can either bring something up and find the way to speak the way that he's telling people to do, tell the truth, show how this affects you, and not in a negative way, but just sharing. And there's a vulnerability that goes with that discomfort. You can either do that, or you can put off conflict and end up building up resentment. And then sometimes that resentment leads to a more aggressive response, right? But that tends to escalate and conflicts get worse. Another subplot we haven't mentioned, but that's super important to the film is, okay, so it doesn't map onto the US in a direct way, but maybe indirectly people will relate to this. In India, like astrology is still pretty big. And so my uncle worked in Bangalore for a while, and the company would not buy a car till they had figured out what's an auspicious day to buy a car. When are the stars lined up?
Every wedding that you have a meeting with.
Many of them, they're looking at these charts, and there's this particular thing where if you were born under Mars, that's bad luck, right? Like somebody who marries someone who is born under Mars might die. To the extent there's regional traditions of like, why don't you marry an inanimate object first? And then it can break. And then your second marriage to a human, right? And so Lucky Singh's daughter was born under Mars. He's faked her papers so that nobody worries about that. But then telling the truth becomes a big deal because the groom-to-be is from this very wealthy, successful family where the family astrologer has a lot of influence to the point that they've added an extra K to the beginning of their name to change the numerology when you add all the letters up. Lucky's stuck in this conflict where he's trying to ignore confrontation. His daughter ultimately decides from calling into the radio show, like, no, I don't want to start my marriage hiding everything. I'm going to go tell the truth and then see what happens.
अंकल, मुझे आपसे कुछ कहना है।
क्या बात है बेटे?
मैं मांगलिक हूँ।
And so there's another message in the film about you don't need astrology to try to control the world around you. You can be vulnerable to the world, but look what you're going to get. We have Munna, who's John B's broken up with him because he told her the truth about everything. Things have gone badly for him. He's on the phone with this bride, then coming drunk to the wedding.
Hey, uncle! तू बहुत बड़ा मिस्टेक कर रहा है, अंकल. ऐसी लड़की तेरे बेटे को फिर नहीं मिलेगी.
It's madcap, and this is the kind of thing that, you know, as my kids are watching, they're going like, oh man, everything is coming together here. Like, what's going to happen? It's a nice release, but it's also a good way to bring this message and say this same principle can work with a neighbor, can work at the city level as we're doing. Oh, we didn't mention another scene I love is the guy trying to get his pension.
Yes.
And you have this thing that's common there of like, you need to pay a little tip for convenience. You have to bribe people to get routine paperwork done.
Right.
This old guy has called in and he's like, I don't have any money. What am I supposed to do? I need this. And Munna says, well, don't fight him, but don't let him push you around either. Here's what you do. And you see the scene of him going in and saying, oh, you need some more money. Okay, well, I don't have money, but
here's my coat.
Here's my glasses. Here's my coat.
Here's my shirt.
Here's my shirt. Here's
Shoes.
my pants, my belt. He's just in underwear standing there.
शर्ट 200 की है।
मास्टर जी बहुत हो गया।
1 मिनट।
अरे मास्टर जी ये बनियान
25 की बनियान। बेल्ट 100 रुपये की। शूज 300 रुपये के हैं।
क्या कर रहे हैं आप? बस करो मास्टर जी।
You see that? The bureaucrat who's been asking for a bribe just get increasingly worried and embarrassed, like, no, please stop, anything. And in that case, you don't get a sense that necessarily this guy individually feels bad, but he does feel publicly, right? Man, I'm in a big shared office. Everybody is watching. This does not look good. I better do something. But it's out of this kind of theatrical way to resist. And again, if somebody was taking your clothes, that's terrible. If you are the one showing, look, I'll give it all up, that's a way for you to assert yourself. So this principle can work with a neighbor. It can work in sort of a political situation. And then it can work in these family negotiations where there's something like different beliefs about the way the world works that are at play.
You used up all of your father's retirement money in the stock market, which is one of the little subplots, right?
Yeah.
Which ties in really nicely because he becomes a cab driver, and then he's the one who has Lucky Singh's daughter in his cab, and he's like, you have to call Munna Bai. This is one of the things that I loved about the film, because as you said before, historically, Hindi film is just kind of feels all over the place. There are so many different subplots, and this one was tied together so well. Everything mattered. Everything came back. There's this real feeling of satisfaction at the end.
Yes.
That you're like, oh, that all worked. Even though at some points it just feels like, what in the world? Yet another thing is happening or going wrong here. Well, I love that.
Aaron Sorkin said once that sort of more sentimental moments in script or looking for those big emotions, judge that in American cinema. But he said it's like swinging for the fences in baseball, because this is either going to really work and resonate with people, or it's going to fall flat. It's going to feel unearned, and they're going to go, oh, that was cheesy. Indian cinema has tons of like, that was cheesy, that's unearned. But I like people who are swinging for the fences all the time, whether it's like, here's a huge hilarious moment, or here's a moment of just like pour out your heart and hug it out family drama, or intense action. Bollywood film is not afraid of swinging for the fences.
You saw this film when it first came out. You keep returning to it. So why talk about this movie today?
For me, this film has aged well or helpfully, in that I am in a world now where the principle of how do you bring good intention to injustice is still there. In the United States, we're a deeply divided country, and some people are nervous that if you don't bring fight and conflict to political differences, are you compromising with injustice?
Complicit, even.
Are you complicit? I think this is a good film to go back to in 2025 and say, what are our options? Maybe there's something in your life that's been unstable in all the ups and downs we've had this century that's left you lashing out. How can we bring a positive energy to advocating? Show vulnerability and pain, how things are struggling for people. If we can do it not in a directly confrontational, accusatory way all the time, play the same note again and again, people get numb to it. I think we need to find new ways in the way we talk about our differences to bring back some hope and aspiration. I'm going to be thinking again about how can I live this now in the way I talk about differences with people.
Thanks again to James for introducing me to Munna Bai. The payoffs in this film are delightful and make an excellent foray into Bollywood cinema. If you're interested in other films from Bombay cinema, you could watch Lagan from 2001, a historical sports film about the supposed introduction of cricket into India under the British Raj. Like many Mumbai films, it's about bringing the community together to overcome the challenges that might overwhelm us individually. If you want to see Sanjay Dutt's mother in action, you should watch Raj Kapoor's 1955 Shri 420, where Nargis plays a good-hearted schoolteacher who finds herself falling in love for a country innocent who has come to Bombay to make his fortune. That country innocent is named Raj, fashioned after Charlie Chaplin's The Little Tramp. One of the film's most famous songs is Mera Juta Hai Japani, or My Shoes Are Japanese, about the new globalized markets available to India outside of British colonialism. But the film is a critique of post-independence India, concerned with how even though India has thrown off the British, it continues to deal with corruption and poverty. And if you want to see the inspiration for the Raj character in Shri 420, you could watch Charlie Chaplin's Little Tramp in the 1936 Modern Times, a comedy about the economic and legal vagaries of poor city dwellers during the Great Depression. It's considered the last silent film and one of the classics of world cinema. Voiceover is a production of BYU Radio and is edited by Aaliyah Alexander. I'm your host, Heather Bigley.